Welcome to the Game Dev Local podcast. I am Roni Yosko, your host at Game Dev Local, who's here to bring you all things indie dev. Joining me today is Aaron Ludlow, product director at Playstack Games. Playstack is a leading games publisher headquartered in London with a diverse team working all over the world to support the creation of indie games. Aaron has been with the company for 7 years with an impressive history supporting developers during his 24 years, as of this Monday, of industry experience across a variety of platforms and budgets. Aaron, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit more about Playstack and everything you guys do?
Yes, when you say 24 years, it really does make me feel old, especially when you're interviewing people and their first games consoles were like PlayStation 3 or Xboxes when mine was a Spectrum 128K plus 3. But yes, thank you for the introduction. Playstack's been around, as you said, for about 8 years. We were essentially founded by Harvey Elliott, who's got a track record in games, and has been used to run the Harry Potter series for EA and among other things. And the way we got together is the idea was everyone at Playstack who has a lot of experience has had bad experiences with games publishers before, and we basically didn't want that for developers because we felt there was a better way to publish games and a better way to work with developers. So we've been founded essentially by game developers for game developers. And we call ourselves very much a developer-led publisher, and we like to think that we stand by that, and we make sure that the developers are front and center on all the decisions we make. Yeah.
Cool. So as a product director, what's your role in the company and what kind of things are you in charge of?
So being part of a reasonably small publisher, it can vary on a day-to-day basis, which is great. My main role is working with game developers and helping them deliver games on time, on budget, and most importantly on quality. I also work closely with the discovery team and our COO on due diligence. So if we see a game we like, we meet devs and we like the devs, we'll meet them and we'll look at their processes and we'll make sure that that not only we have confidence in them to make the game, but they also have confidence in us as well. We always say that even if you're not 100% sure we're going for us, then maybe we're not the right partnership. You know, there needs to be that high level of trust from both parties.
Yeah.
And that's very important to us.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I've been on the receiving end of, finding publishers for developers through my current job, and yeah, the trust bit is absolutely needed in that regard. Do you ever get to be? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Sorry, my fault. And yeah, because the games that these developers are working on, they're putting their blood, sweat, and tears into it. It's essentially their baby, right? So they want you to do your best and to treat it like their own, which is what I think we do.
Yeah. Do you ever get to be on the ground, like conferences, working with devs and meeting them yourself, or do you kind of leave that to other people on the team?
Yeah, and as I said, part of a small team means that we get to do a bit of everything. So it was at GDC in March.
Yeah.
I mean, coming up in the summer, meeting new devs and trying to see what we can do. And it's it's a tough industry at the moment, but there are a lot of great opportunities out there, and there's a lot of publishers as well. There's a lot of competition, but there's also a lot of games. So
Yeah. That's an interesting point actually. With this time of year, and this time being a very interesting and difficult time in the game industry. Would you be able to talk a little bit about the kind of things you've been experiencing due to all the mass layoffs? And have more indie developers been popping up with their more interesting ideas, or is that what kind of things are going on?
I think that's going to happen. I think that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is terrible what's been happening in the industry, and you know, heart goes out to anyone that's been affected. I think what we will see is we'll see a lot of new a lot of new indie developers pop up that have been created out of being laid off, and I think that's definitely going to come. Hopefully, we get some really great games come out of that. But yeah, look,
Yeah.
heart goes out to anyone that's been laid off, and I hope everyone lands on their feet again.
Yeah. 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 Really, honestly, true. So for new indie developers kind of coming up and looking for a publisher to help them out with their game, what's one of the things that you guys typically look for whenever you get a pitch from an indie developer and to kind of decide on whether or not to support them or not?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think first and foremost, it's a great game. So we'll even we get a pitch document, and we don't often sign games based on pitch documents unless they are a very experienced dev and we have some personal experience with them. Otherwise, we'll get like a vertical slice or a prototype, and we'll play it. And if we like it, then we'll review the pitch decks, and we'll go into more details with them. I think one of the most common mistakes we see from developers, one of the most common mistakes I see with developers is, especially less experienced ones, is they're very optimistic
Mm,
on their dates and their budget. It could be partly because they're trying to get the game signed, so they're like, we'll do it as quick as possible for as cheap as possible. But when you've been in the industry for as long as I have, you get a rough understanding of how long these things take, and if you have a team of three trying to do a massively multiplayer online game and they say they can do it in 6 months, obviously you're skeptical. So
yeah.
I think honesty and passion are the two things that we really look for in developers that we work with.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I've had a lot of discussions with some indie developers, especially at WAS that I went to recently. And I think one of the questions that we were asking them was, what's the one thing that you didn't quite expect whenever you were first making their game? And the biggest outlier was the time it takes to actually go through and make their game come to life. So yeah, yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, and
What happens whenever you? Oh, sorry. Go
I
on.
was just going to say, putting in when the devs also think about things like contingency and that kind of stuff, it just gives us that extra layer of confidence that we think that they
Yeah,
can meet their dates because they're thinking about that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely understandable. What kind of thing do you do when you're met with those kinds of like you spot something that the devs haven't quite thought about? Do you provide them support along those lines, some guidance? What's your process around that?
Yeah, yeah, totally. It depends on their level of experience. We appreciate, especially developers that are like working on their first game. There's certain things that they're not going to be too knowledgeable about. Localization could be one of them, for instance. Building a game to be localized can be difficult, and sometimes the devs don't think of that. And also working with
Yeah,
outsourcers as well. Sometimes, especially smaller teams, they need some help from things like extra art resource, and being able to work with a number of art outsourcers on various games. Being a publisher, we're able to help guide them on who to pick, but also things like uh, art style guidelines and that kind of stuff, which if they've never worked with an art outsourcer before, they won't really know about. So it's just another example of what we can help with. and then we're not even really going into the marketing and the trailers and the marketing plan, etc., which is a whole new other kettle of fish.
Yeah, yeah. Do you guys, I'm assuming you guys have a pretty big pool of kind of outsource developers and partners that you kind of work with to steer indie folks into the right direction if they do need that kind of help, or
Yes, yeah, definitely. From localization, we've got internal QA, but we also use external QA, focus testing, and also porting as well. So we've developed
Mhm.
some relationships with a number of reporting houses that we trust, that becomes important as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so I understand that your guys' latest release, Balatro, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Balatro,
It
yes.
sold over a million yeah, yeah. It sold over a million copies in less than a month, is that right?
Yes, yes, it has, and yeah, wow, it's been fantastic. So we came across that we got a really great discovery team here, Patrick and Narman, and
Mm.
they came across it on Steam, and they played it, and they were like, well, they saw it first, and they thought this looks interesting, and then when they played it, they couldn't stop playing it, and they were like passing it around to a couple members of the team, saying, "Is this just us, or is this game just incredible?" And we were like, "No, this game is incredible." So do what we can to do what we can to sign it, and yeah, it's been great, and Local Funk, the developer, has been fantastic to work with. Um, I think it's also worth pointing out that yeah, it is a fantastic game, and he's done a great job on it. But there was a lot of effort behind the scenes, especially from a marketing point of view, that you just don't see. Like
Mm.
a lot of these like viral hits. Um, sometimes devs might get lucky, and a really big influencer might just play the game and post it up, and it just goes crazy. But I think 9 times out of 10, the reason why these games have become viral hits is because of the marketing plan behind it, and Liz and the marketing team have done a great job in managing that and giving it the best opportunity to be as successful as it has.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. What kind of games have you guys seen cropping up more and more, do you think? Especially now that like the Steam Deck has become a really big thing. Lots of people are buying that, and so I think, yeah, what kind of games do you see cropping up more and more?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, Definitely seeing a lot of roguelikes, um, but also games
Hmm.
that has an element of streamability. So we just released a Biotic Factor that is a survival crafting like co-op game, and it's a really fun game to stream because it just creates hilarity through streamers, and they're loving it. And having a game that and Balatro is another good one that's actually really good to stream because it's a roguelike and because you never know what's going to happen next. It's um, the marketing team organised like a streamer competition before release that done really well, and viewers are really addicted to see
Cool.
what was going to come up next in the game, and so 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 streamability is becoming a big thing. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I've noticed that I think I played, what was it, the Entropy Center recently
Entropy
from you
Center, yeah,
guys. Uh
yeah.
yeah, and that one was kind of I didn't really know what to expect actually when I loaded it up. But it was one of those games that was really, really nice to play like on TV and streaming it
Mhm.
and everything like that as well. That's a really, really good point. Yeah. Yeah. So do you look for, because you mentioned you guys do roguelikes, and also I know that you guys do puzzle games as well, because I think it was the Case of the Golden Idol you guys did published, and then obviously the Entropy Center. Is there a specific genre that you guys look for? Is it just kind of everything?
Do you know what? It's a great question. We're quite broad as a publisher. Some publishers, they stick to specific genres, and that works really well for them. And and doing that as well, I guess it helps them get like the cream of the crop in that genre. I think you look at a publisher like Hooded Horse, for instance, that just
Yeah.
fantastic and very great success with strategy games. And then they've just recently released Manor Lords, which is again a great game and the most wishes for game ever, or something crazy. But no, what we just look for is great games, and we're lucky enough that we have a team that know the majority of genres very well, and we have a broad knowledge of all kinds of games. So as you said, yeah, Golden Idol, narrative, Balatro, roguelike card game, abiotic factor, survival craft, all very different. Um, so yes, crazy.
Ooh, yeah. Um, so when, sorry, I just like lost my train of thought just then, so we're just gonna have Ilea uh kind of do a little edit there. Um, Let me see what other question, because I'm looking at this and there are quite similar questions. Um, I guess my one of my questions would be on top of the timelines, when what meaning when developers come to you and you see the kind of mistakes they're making. You mentioned that timelines is one of the biggest ones that you see come up quite often. Is there any other kind of mistakes that you see indie developers making for advice that you could give them, I suppose, when starting out in their creating their game?
Yeah, timelines is probably the main one. Timelines and budget, and it's just trying to be aware of all the different aspects, the porting, the outsourcing, etc. Is kind of what we touched on earlier, uh,
Mm,
and just resources like what you need to remember is you're not just developing a game, you're running a company, and especially some of
yeah,
like the small to medium size. And I'm not necessarily talking about a dev and his best friend or family member. I'm talking about when you have like 5, 6 members of staff, um, people will leave because they do, or new people will join,
yeah,
and it's all that kind of, because you're running a company, everything like that affects the schedules, and you need to have a good business head, as well as running the game studio as well.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I spoke to someone recently. I think it was the guy who worked on Paper Trail, uh, lovely guy,
Yeah.
Fred Hoffman. And I noticed that, especially at WAS as well, that I noticed that some developers, or a lot of them, were actually family members, like two
Hmm.
brothers working together on a project, which I don't know if that's a going trend in the community or not, but have you seen that quite often, or is
Eh,
it mostly just like ragtag of teams?
no, no, no. It's quite common. It's quite common, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
quite common because because often when you have siblings and you grow up playing games with them, it depends on the
yeah,
age range. So you grow up with common interests, and the grow up wanting to make games together.
yeah. Do you have siblings? Did you guys used to play games as well together, or not really?
Oh, so I have a sister who's 4 years older than me. We used to, but the age gap was a little bit awkward. But when I was young, oh, it's so funny. So you couldn't just search the internet for answers. So what I used to do is
Yeah.
I used to write game guides and sell them at school. My sister used to type them up on a typewriter, and then we used to get them photocopied. I remember it was Simpsons on the Nintendo NES. I'd play it and tell my sister that was 4 years older than me, so she had a better understanding of English than I did at the time. And she would type it out, and then yeah, we'd send them for like 10p at school, and some pocket money. Quite funny.
That's amazing. What a story. And then you ended up working in a publishing company. That's amazing.
Yes, Yeah, no, indeed. No, it was great. And then when I was at secondary school, not family related, but I used to run like a championship manager league with the friends at school, and I used to. My parents used to hate the ink I used to get through, but I used to like print out the fixtures and the team sheets, and people would tell me who they
Wow.
want to pick, and then we would do transfers with each other. And not I made no financial gain for this. This was just fun. And I just remember the teachers were like, there was like a group of like 15 of us, and the teachers were getting very annoyed because we were just be discussing tactics and transfers most of the day. But yeah, no, that was good fun. But then that I just again, when we're talking about friends and family members being involved with game devs, playing games is a social thing, and so you can see how it happens.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's why I think a lot of friends end up working together as well because it's such a social aspect of it. I mean, one of my one the internet is an amazing thing, and I'm really glad that we have it because coming from the States, for me, for instance, I stay connected with a lot of friends by playing video games, and two-player co-op games is a really big one. They're really important to me. And things like, Apex and League of Legends and those types of things really help bring people together. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love supporting indie developers too, because it's such a creative field when it comes to, making games, and it really does connect people in ways that you don't really see. I mean, film obviously connects people as well, but indie games and just games in general kind of they have that a bit of more magic I think to them with the community surrounding them as well, so yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember you were talking about your past when I was my past is not nearly impressive with selling cheat sheets, I suppose, to schooling, but my older brother, I played with him quite frequently, 4 years apart as well, and he would just kind of sit me in the corner and be like, I'll like a Call of Duty game and be like, okay, now you stand here, don't get killed, and I'm gonna do the shooting. So that was my introduction into video games. Uh, um, so can I ask, what's been your favorite game that you've worked on at Playstack and even elsewhere as well? Yeah.
Oh, of course. So I think my most favorite game was probably Black and White back at Lionhead.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
that was my first game in 2000, and it was great because it was a fantastic team. I was working with Peter Molyneux, and I was 18 at the time, and it was just a great experience. And the job at Lionhead changed my life. I got picked from a work experience program that they had to work in QA there, and I'm still making games now. So that was an incredible experience for me, and it was quite a genre defining game as well at the time.
Mm, mm,
Other
yeah.
games, there's been a lot because there's been a lot of companies that I sound like, oh, I've worked for so many companies. I sound like I leave every year. I don't. It's not that bad. As I said, I've been at Playstack for 7 years. Um, uh, but that's what the industry's like. I've been made redundant a couple of times, and unfortunately,
Mm,
there isn't a job, as we were talking about earlier. There isn't a job for life, unfortunately. Um, One of the other games that I enjoyed working on was Battalion Wars. We were one of the first companies at the time when I was working at Puju that were working on the Wii, and when we worked on Battalion Wars 2, we worked on the Wii the Wii for the first time, the Nintendo Wii. That was an experience. So
yeah.
that was good. And I guess at PlayStack, uh, it would be it's going to sound quite corny, but I guess Balatro is just it's the PlayStack game. I think I put more hours into as a player because I didn't actually have any input into Balatro. I wasn't working on Balatro, but in terms of playing it after release, that's a game I put more hours in, and still because it's so addictive.
Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting point actually. Is Is it difficult for you to play some of the games that you've spent so many hours working on? Because I know working in development myself, I got to touch a lot of different types of games, and so it's sometimes it's difficult going back and actually playing through, especially if you already know what the story is like and everything, and you've gotten spoilers along the way. But is it hard for you to do that, or do you find yourself doing it anyway?
Yeah, I find myself doing it. It's just a different experience, and I think that when you start working in the games industry, you kind of rewire yourself slightly differently to playing games. And it's not that I enjoy playing games less. It's just I enjoy it different. Like I sometimes think, oh, I wonder how they did that, or I really like that parallax scrolling, or look at that bug, or that kind of stuff. You just look at things differently. But yeah, like sometimes there's certain ones. I think Golden Idol, which which again is such a great game. But there's only so many times that I go back and replay it just because I know all the answers now to all the clues. So that's obviously a bit of
Yeah.
a different type of game than something like Balatro.
Yeah. So for games like Balatro and Case of the Golden Idol and all and the really prominent big hits that you guys have had, did you expect them to do as well as they did? Or did they kind of exceed expectations for you?
So when you play a game and you know you've got a good game here, and when you keep playing it for hours and hours and hours, and it's like, okay, there's something special here. You always hope it's going to do well, and you always hope it's going to succeed expectations. But until you get it out there, you just don't know. And I think the longer you work on a game, when you see it every day, the longer you're questioning yourself. You just got to remember this is a good game because you know deep down it's a good game. So when games like Case of the Golden Idol, games like Balatro, we always knew, for instance, well, we always thought it would get overwhelmingly positive on Steam, for instance. We thought, right, this is an overwhelmingly positive game. We're quite confident of that. But then how well it sells, you just never know. And
Right.
until you get it out there. So, and it, I think both games have probably exceeded our expectations, but exceeded it in a good way because we always, if you have an overwhelmingly positive game on Steam, then you've got a good chance. That's half the battle is having a great game. And then it's the marketing team's job, and we're very lucky here with the staff we have in the marketing department because they've done great jobs on our games and they continue to do so. And we just released Abiotic, for instance, Abiotic Factor, and that's doing really well at the moment as well.
Yeah. Cool. Um, that actually got me thinking about another question too, was know that a lot of like AAA games, for instance, they tend to plan their releases around other big AAA games. Like for instance, like Baldur's Gate coming out. I think some people had to restructure their release date around that. Do you guys ever kind of run into a similar position in terms of, even having to look at the big AAA hitters to make sure that your games kind of are on the market when people are looking to buy something new?
I think, yeah, I think that's I think that's a good question. I think the marketing team are probably best to answer it. I think from my point of view, especially when you're a smaller publisher, when you're a smaller publisher and you've got marketing campaigns, I think it's a lot harder to move games than it is if you're a bigger publisher and you've got bigger budgets, for instance. But I think I think any games developer and publisher, you always want to release when there isn't a big indie game coming out or a AAA game coming out, because at the end of the day, everyone is competing for everyone's hours, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm competing for these games are competing for my hours, right? I've only got so many hours in a day, and I enjoy AAA games on my PS5, my Xbox, but I also enjoy indie games as well on Steam or my Switch or even on my phone, right? So everyone is competing. Everyone is competing for everyone's time. So I think we're always aware of it. I think there's certain times of the year where you're more aware of it as well. When you have a rough idea when the next COD's coming out or the next feast is coming out, and you know two things. One, that's going to take that's going to take a lot of press, but two, that's going to take a lot of people's time because these games are big hitters that people love playing.
Cool. Yeah. It's a really interesting point because yeah, it's something that I've always thought about whenever it comes to AAA stuff, but not really seems to be an issue when it comes to indie developers. They kind of just go, "Yep, game's out. There it is," kind of thing. But yeah, yeah, really, really interesting point. Um, can I
Yeah, and
ask what is?
I think you I think you've got
Sorry.
to be careful. No, it's fine. I think you've got to be careful, like when you release indie games. Like for instance, we would have hoped that we wouldn't release a game on the same day as Hades 2, for instance, because you're not going to
Right.
get
Yeah.
much of an impact from a marketing point of view and from a player's point of view because it's such an amazing game, everyone's going to jump and play it. So
Yeah.
I think you'd be surprised how many indies that whilst I agree with you to an extent, I think you'd be surprised how many do actually make sure that if that suddenly dropped, they might say, oh, let's just release next week, otherwise we'll be totally lost.
Yeah. 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 Do you think they more commonly like kind of, I suppose, not compete isn't really the right word, but plan their releases in the same kind of bracket levels, like indie to indie versus AAA to AAA? Like indie's not really worried about AAA nearly as much as maybe another hit indie games is just about to release. Like for instance, like Hollow Knight whenever it's releasing, or a game like Celeste, that sort of thing.
Possibly, although as I said earlier, because players play a wide variety of games, and you are repeat myself a little bit, but we are competing for people's time.
Yeah.
I think even in an indie game, you need to be wary of the big hitters. You need to be wary of the
Yeah.
AAA games. That doesn't mean that you can't release in the same week as Call of Duty and be successful, because you can. Especially when you're a different genre and a different type of game. But if you
Yeah.
are in a space which is quite broad, like Balatro, for instance. I think, for a game like Balatro, everyone likes Balatro. And people that play Call of Duty, people that play FIFA, and then people that play Hades. Every type of it ticks a lot of boxes from demographic. So I think indies are generally they're aware of really schedules from AAA to indies.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have a specific genre that you enjoy playing, or even like playtesting whenever you're doing that at Playstack?
Well, personally, and maybe it's why I enjoy Playstack so much, is my the type of games I like is similar to the games we publish. Like I'll play some FIFA, I'll play like games like Golden Idol, I'll play Balatro, I'll play the odd FPS, I'll play World of Warcraft Classic occasionally. I just like a wide variety of games personally. I haven't really got a specific favorite at the moment. I'm still playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because I'm nuts about
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII. So it's as many are. So yeah.
Cool. I mean, because you've had such an extensive history with helping developers, another question would be, what's been your favorite, or I guess maybe, yeah, what's been your favorite console, I suppose, to kind of work with in terms of like it's hard to phrase that question actually, but what have you enjoyed? Like what era have you enjoyed the most, I suppose, uh with
Oh,
game development?
for the current era is so much easier than the previous eras.
Yeah.
Like like it on the when I was working on the PlayStation One, when we did submissions, we had to burn, I think it was 7 individual CDs on this burner, and we had to send them to Liverpool to get checked by Sony, and it was completely different world. Well, now you just upload the build. It's a
Yeah.
different world compared to what it used to be back in the day. It was it was tough, and not only that is you had to be you, I could download Unity, and in a day I could buy some assets off the Unity store, and I could get a game on one of the app stores, for instance, or a game up on Steam within a week. You couldn't do that back in the day. Back in the day, you were fighting for store shelf space in game in Tesco's.
Hmm.
So I used to have to, because I was in QA and I knew the game the most. They used to send me with one of the sales people to these events where you would be in a big expo center with these different buyers from all these different stores, and you would have to play the game in front of them to demo it, to show this should be on your shelf, because you could work on a game for
Yeah.
years, and if Game or Electronics Boutique, which was in America at the time, if they didn't want to put your game on a shelf, no one would buy it because no one would be able to. Whereas now, because you
Yeah.
have all the app stores and you have Steam, not only can anyone release a game, but anyone can buy a game as well, and you can sell a game to
Yeah.
so many more people than you used to.
Yeah. I would assume the same thing would go for like marketing, for instance, because social media exists now, that the outreach is actually a lot easier to do, and a bit cheaper as well. You don't have to put big billboards up on, in a bus station or, on the TV or anything like that as well. So yeah, it's not
It's
something that you think about every day, but yeah.
it's true, and a lot of the big publishers still do that, and it works for them. But obviously, some of the smaller publishers and the indie studios, they won't. And we have our own internal team that does digital marketing. So we still look at things like Facebook and X, Reddit, etc., as ways that we can advertise our games. And that's still an important part of the marketing.
Yeah. Have you found it interesting, or has there been any shifts, I suppose, that you've noticed since the Steam Deck has come out? Because I'm aware that you guys, what you post, or you support developers who are uploading to Steam, I think, quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah, we have all of our games are all of our games are on Steam. All of our non-mobile games, because we do premium. We've got Apple Arcade games as well, in Cityscapes. But all of our PC console games are all on Steam. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that since the Steam Deck has been released that you've had to like consider different things whenever you've been looking at games, or has that not been a factor really?
Well, no, we don't quite go like Steam Deck first. I guess because the majority of our games are also on Switch, we make sure that it can be enjoyed from a handheld point of view, which includes Steam Deck. So we need to make sure the text, you can still read the text, and it controls nice, and just so the experience is what you'd get on the big screen, but on the smaller screen. I've got a Steam Deck myself,
Yeah.
and I love it, being able to take it on holiday with me and play my Steam catalog's great. It's definitely something that we bear in mind, because we all want a green tick for compatibility mode, and we do what we can to support that.
Yeah, yeah. And it is the modding community on Steam is very, very nice, because even if you don't have the green tick, they will go to bat for certain games that they do love, and yeah, the bless the modding community on Steam, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's great, and that's great, about the gaming community in general. It's
Yeah.
they're like that. They've always been like that from when I used to be involved with modding Half-Life back in the day. It's yeah.
But you modded Half-Life, is that right?
Well, I was part of. Oh God, this is. I haven't actually told this story in a while. It's not a big story. So I was before I got into game dev, but professionally, I used to work on a couple of mods. There was one in particular that was it was called the Poker mod. It was like a total conversion of Half-Life of Pokemon. It didn't go very far, to be honest. I think partly probably legal, although I wasn't involved with that. I was just doing some like QA and production work on it. but it didn't actually get released in the end. But it was a way, and this is what I for aspiring game devs to look at doing. Of course, you've got Unity now and engines like that, but back in the day we didn't have that, so we would just look at modding like Half-Life and other games, getting into it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do know that like back in the day it was about modding and I think it was a very big thing for people to get their foot in the door with QA. And thankfully since the internet and technology has increased, it's not quite true anymore that you can actually specialize in a certain field right from the get-go. So, yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, one of the things that we're seeing, one of the big changes in the industry at the moment has been the subscription platforms. We're lucky; we've got a really good relationship with our platform partners. Everyone probably says that, but we've had a game on PS Plus, Xbox Game Pass. We've had an Epic Game of the Day. We've got a game on Apple Arcade, which is Cityscapes. And back in December, we announced Rise of the Golden Idol with Netflix. So, yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Um, well, it's been lovely, absolutely lovely talking with you. I've learned quite a lot actually about publishing and what to look for and kind of things to help support indie developers, and I hope our audience has as well. So I guess my last question for you would be, what are the next steps for Playstack? Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience? Do you guys have any social media that you'd like to advertise or any new games coming out shortly?
Yeah, so follow us at Playstack Games on X. Please follow us at Playstack on Steam as well. There's lots I'd love to tell you, but I would honestly, my marketing department would be too happy if I did. That
Good.
we got some great stuff coming up, both this year and next year, and we're going to be at Gamescom this year. So if you're looking to get a game published, then feel free to get in touch. I'm as a UK AZZA UK on X as well. So feel free to follow me and drop me a message, and I'll get back to you.
Cool, awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron Ludlow, for joining us on the Game Dev Local podcast. This has been Ronnie Yosko with Everything Indie Development, and I hope to see you guys again in the future. Bye.
Thank you.